It's kind of strange when you think about it. We live in a world with nonstop communication, right? We're texting, calling, posting, reading all day long. And yet, how many of us actually feel heard? Truly, deeply heard? It's a huge paradox. So, what's going on here?
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into why nobody feels heard. Then, we'll get into something called whole person listening. It's a game changer. We'll also cover the 3 big traps we all fall into. After that, we'll stock up your toolkit with some killer listening skills, learn to hear what's not being said, and wrap it all up with a simple exercise you can try literally today. All right, let's jump right in and tackle that big paradox head on. With all this talking, all this noise, why does genuine connection feel so hard to find? This isn't just you imagining things, it's a real widespread feeling. It's like we're all broadcasting on our own frequency, just talking past each other. The answer isn't about talking louder, it's about a complete, almost revolutionary shift in how we approach listening itself. And that big shift, it starts right here. It's about moving beyond just processing the words someone says and starting to listen to the entire person who's saying them. So this completely reframes what listening even means, right? It's not a passive activity where you just let words wash over you. No, it's an active, curious exploration. You're trying to understand the whole human experience that's unfolding right there in front of you. And this exploration, it's happening on 4 different levels at the same time. You're listening for the different roles they play in life. Are they speaking as a parent, a boss, a friend? You're listening for the emotions bubbling under the surface. You're listening for the context, the situation they're in right now. And importantly, you're listening for their past. And that last one, the past, is often the trickiest. So this is a really crucial point. Acknowledging someone's past is not the same as approving of it. You don't have to agree with their history to accept that it's part of their story. See, judgment slams the door shut. Acknowledgement opens it up. Okay, but even when we're trying our best, it is so easy to get knocked off course. Let's talk about a few super common listening traps that, honestly, we all fall into without even noticing. There are these 3 big ones that are just incredibly common. And the tricky part is, they usually operate on autopilot, completely derailing our conversations before we even know what's happening. First up is what you could call the provoked ear. The second someone says something that bumps up against one of our core values, bam, our listening just shuts down. We stop trying to understand and we start building a case for why they're wrong. Our curiosity just morphs into an interrogation. The second trap is all about comparison. Someone starts telling you their problem and your brain immediately goes, "Oh, I know this. This is just like what happened to my cousin." And suddenly you're not listening to them anymore. You're listening to your memory of your cousin. Then there's the hidden agenda trap. That's when we're not really listening to understand, we're just waiting for that one little opening to steer the conversation where we want it to go. All right, so we know the traps to watch out for. Now let's get practical. Let's load up our toolkit with 3 really powerful tools to help us navigate around them. Now, these might look almost too simple on the surface, but I'm telling you, when you use them with real purpose and intention, they can absolutely transform your conversations. First up, silence. We're so conditioned to think of silence as awkward, something we need to fill. But active silence is a powerful tool. It stops us from jumping in and interrupting, sure, but it does something way more important. It sends a message of deep respect. It gives both of you a second to actually think, not just plan your comeback. The second tool is this one simple question. It is so powerful. When someone says something vague, like, "I'm just so overwhelmed," instead of offering solutions, just ask, "What exactly do you mean by overwhelmed?" That one little question cuts through all the fluff and gets right to the heart of what's really going on. And finally, there's reflective feedback. Now, this is not about criticism at all. It's literally just holding up a mirror. You say, "Okay, so what I think I'm hearing you say is," and then you wait for that magic moment when their face lights up and they say, "Yes, exactly." That's it. That's when you know real connection is happening and trust is being built. Okay, now we're going to go another layer deeper. Because real listening, elite listening, isn't just about the words that are said. It's about the huge, vast territory of what's left unspoken. Get ready for this statistic, because it is staggering. Right after a conversation ends, on average, we only remember about half of what was said. Just 50%. But what about long term? Well, that number drops off a cliff. It goes down to just 20%. I mean, think about that. A full 80% of our conversations are just gone, vanished into thin air.
And here's the kicker. Here's why. The overwhelming majority of any message we communicate, we're talking over 90%, is not in the words. It's in the tone of voice, the energy, the body language. The actual words, they're just the tiny, tiny tip of a massive iceberg. So, the big question is, how do we start paying attention to the whole iceberg and not just that little tip? Let's wrap up with a really practical exercise you can use to put all of this into action. Next time you find yourself in a tricky conversation, I want you to try this. Mentally separate these three things. First, just the facts. What would a video camera have recorded? No emotion, no judgment. Second, identify the story you're telling yourself about those facts. That's your interpretation. And only then, third, can you start brainstorming solutions.
And that really leaves us with one final powerful question to think about. Almost all of our misunderstandings and conflicts live in that space between the objective facts and the stories we create about them. So, in your conversations, what story are you telling yourself? Because figuring that out might be the first step to truly hearing other people. And maybe, just maybe, truly hearing yourself for the first time.